Ah, there we go. Good thing the Boros have my back. They have the best energy, even surviving through Ruby Storms and the Eldrazi coming through the breach. So let's talk about Boros Energy. Boros Energy is a red-white aggro deck that uses the energy mechanic to its advantage. Playing must-answer 1-drops like Guide of Souls, Ragavan, and Ocelot Pride into a must-answer 2-drop in Ajani Nakatal Pariah, and big 2-for-1s like Amped Raptor and a long-term 2-for-1 in Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. On top of that, we're playing Unstable Amulet in order to have a little bit of reach, and energy-based removal in Static Prism and Galvanic Discharge. It is a play creatures, attack, get value out of those creatures, remove your opponent's creatures, and win. Though I hear the Boros are planning on fighting the Eldrazi in order to keep their power business running, now that's some customer service. So let's talk about the cards in Boros Energy, starting with the mana base. First off, we're playing Aether Hub. Aether Hub is a kind of a weird card. It's a free energy with a land drop. We just get an energy when we play Aether Hub. And we can spend an energy to have a mana of any color be added, or we can just add a colorless mana. Now, if we use up that energy and then we need a colored mana from Aether Hub, this can kind of mess up our mana base, which is why we're only playing 3. But it's really hard to say no to just a free energy with our land drop and not having to work for it. We're also playing 2 Arena of Glory. Arena of Glory is a red land that enters untapped if you have a mountain. We have plenty of mountains in our deck, so we don't have to worry about that. And we can pay a red, tap it, and exert it to add 2 red to our mana pool. And if one of those red is used to cast a creature spell, then it gains haste. Now, the only times you're really going to use this super often is with Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. For when you bring it back, you use 2 red for the 2 red, 2 white cost, and it comes back, it deals 3 damage to something, you gain 3 life. It attacks, it deals 3 damage to something, you gain 3 life, and it deals 6 combat damage, which is just disgusting to do in the same term and often just wins the game. I've also used it a few times with the Ragavan, if we have a Ragavan that we want to pay the mana to dash but don't want it to stay on the battlefield. And remember, both red can be used for different creatures if you had a ton of mana and wanted to give 2 things haste. We're playing an Elegant Parlor mostly because it's pretty free to only play 1, and we can fetch those up when we have a fetch land but don't plan on using the mana in order to surveil the top card of a library and have some card selection. We're playing 4 Sacred Foundry in order to have the best mana possible. It's an untapped red-white source, 2 plains, and a mountain. The plains mostly because we're playing Blood Moon in our 75 and want to make sure we can tap our lands for all of our colors, and the mountain because Harbinger of the Tides is now in the format. We're playing 4 Arid Mesa so we can fetch out our basics and any land in our deck besides Aether Hub, and 4 other white fetches. I'm playing Marsh Flats in this list, but you can play any white fetch to be able to fetch out all of our dual lands and our plains. Now, as far as our creature base goes, we're playing 4 Guide of Souls. Guide of Souls is a 1 mana 1/2 where when another creature enters the battlefield, you get an energy and gain a life. Then when a creature attacks, you can pay 3 energy, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and put a flying counter on it. So it gains energy, it creates staying power by gaining a life, and it creates evasion and extra aggro. Guide of Souls is one of the best cards in our deck. It also combos with Ocelot Pride. Ocelot Pride is a 1 mana 1/1 with First Strike and Lifelink, and it says at the beginning of your end step, if you gained a life this turn, then you put a 1/1 cat token onto the battlefield. That's already pretty good. It combos with itself. The thing is, when you combo it with Guide of Souls will gain a life so that you don't even have to attack with Ocelot Pride. You can just like get the cat the first turn you play it if you already have a Guide of Souls. Also, it has Ascend, where you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game if you have 10 or more permanents while Ocelot Pride is on the battlefield. And if you have the City's Blessing when that end step trigger happens, then every single token that you got throughout this turn is double, which means you'll get 2 Ocelot Pride tokens. And if you have 2 Ocelot Prides, you do the math, you'll end up getting 6, because the first one will trigger, it'll double. So you'll have 2. The second one will trigger, which means you'll have another 1, which means total 3, and then it'll double, making 6. This also works alongside the Ajani token, which we'll talk about in just a second. And if you happen to be playing the Fable of the Mirror Breaker version, it works with the Goblin tokens and also the treasure tokens you get from Ragavan. Speaking of Ragavan, Ragavan is a 1 mana 2/1. It has dash, meaning you can pay 2 mana to have it enter the battlefield with haste, but it returns to your hand at the beginning of your end step. When it deals combat damage to the opponent, you get a treasure and exile the top card out of your opponent's deck, and you can cast that card this turn. This card is mana ramp. It's aggressively costed. It can avoid board wipes because you can just like dash it and have it return to your hand. It can be a benefit. And it can get card advantage if you hit cards off the top of your opponent's deck that you can actually cast and that are good for you. Ragavan is just mind-blowingly good. The issue is it's pretty bad against like one mana, 1 power creatures, you know. We're also playing Ajani Nakatal Pariah. Ajani Nakatal Pariah is a 2 mana 1/2 that when it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/1 cat warrior. Then if a cat you control dies, you get to flip Ajani, and it flips into a pretty powerful planeswalker. Starting at 3 loyalty, you can +2 loyalty in order to put a +1/+1 counter on all the cats you control, which actually is pretty often, because remember, we have the token from Ajani, we have Ocelot Pride, and the tokens we get from Ocelot Pride for cats. You can pay 0 loyalty to get a 2/1 cat warrior creature token and put it on the battlefield, and then if you control a red permanent other than Ajani, Ajani deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target, including the player or a creature, to get things out of the way so you can continue attacking. And we have plenty of red permanents, so this happens kind of all the time. And then we almost never ult Ajani because we're not plussing it too much. We're mostly just using the 0 ability because that's the most value. But it's ultimate. I'm gonna have to read to you. Each opponent chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control. Then they sacrifice the rest. So it's kind of a board wipe to kind of get things back under control, but things kind of should already be under control if you have controlled Ajani for long enough to ult it anyway. But it can ult within 2 turns, so keep it in mind. We're also playing for Amped Raptor. Amped Raptor is a 2-mana 2/1 with first strike, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, meaning like actually from your hand, so if you hit cast it off other Amped Raptors or off of like unstable amulets or things like that, it doesn't work. You get to exile cards from the top of your library until you hit a non-land. Then you may pay an energy equal to its mana cost in order to cast it for that instead of paying its normal mana cost. Also, you get 2 energy pretty much no matter what, even if you cast it from Unstable Amulet or a Regavan or something like that. Getting the 2 energy doesn't really care about being cast from your hand. So this card is just like a 2-for-1. You get 2 things just for casting the Amped Raptor. So good. Then our last creature is Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. This card is just amazing. It's kind of like a just better Kroxa. It's a 3-mana 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice it unless you escaped it. However, when it enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. So it's kind of like a 3-mana Lightning Helix at worst. Then you can escape it by playing 4 mana, 2 red, 2 white, and exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard. So this happens in the mid game. To bring it back, you escaped it so you don't sacrifice it, but you get another Lightning Helix effect where you deal 3 damage to something and you gain 3 life. And then this also happens when you attack, and it's a 6/6. It's extremely powerful. It's very good against these aggro decks and very good against decks that you expect to go really, really long, and that will like stop your initial aggro. As far as non-creature spells, we're running quite a bit of removal. We have Static Prism, which is a 1-mana O-ring, basically. It's a 1-mana enchantment that exiles an on-land permanent the opponent controls, and you get 2 energy when it enters the battlefield. However, you have to pay an energy at the beginning of your upkeep to keep it on the battlefield, or else they get it back. We're playing 4 Galvanic Discharge, which is a 1 red mana instant, where you get 3 energy when it resolves, and you can pay any amount of energy, and it deals that much damage to any creature or planeswalker. This is really good because, at worst, it deals 3 damage to something, which is great for 1 mana, but also if you have a bunch of energy in your pool, which this deck is really good at doing, you can kill very large things for just 1 red mana. And we're playing some Lightning Bolts. Lightning Bolt is the classic 1 red mana, deal 3 damage to any target. It's good removal, good hitting face with it, just all around a good card. And then we're playing 4 Unstable Amulets for some staying power against these other decks. It's a 2-mana artifact where you get 2 energy when it enters. Then you can tap it and pay 2 energy, so you'll always replace itself, to exile a card off the top of your deck and essentially put it under Unstable Amulet. Then you can cast that card, as long as you haven't already activated Unstable Amulet again. If you activate it again, you can no longer cast that card, and now you can only cast this new card. And if you cast things from anywhere other than your hand, which includes from Unstable Amulet, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. This also includes things like the Regavan trigger. It also includes casting Flage from your graveyard. It also includes like casting off of Amped Raptor. So it's a lot of really good long-term, short incremental damage alongside card advantage in and of itself and an energy dump if you need that. Now, as far as our sideboard goes, it's pretty straightforward. Celestial Purge is for any black or red permanents we're concerned with. Drannith Magistrate is for like other Flages and Living End and things like that. Sun Cleanser is really good against other energy decks and also really good against Wrath of the Skies decks because it takes energy away from our opponents. Harsh Mentor is mostly in the deck for Nadu, but is also decent against the One Ring decks and really anything with fetch lands. Blood Moon, also very good against Nadu, but good against Tron. And the threat of it makes people fetch really poorly and have to grab basics rather than their good lands. We're playing the Gigantha because it's just free and essentially we're starting with 8 cards in our hand instead of 7. Wear Tears are artifact and enchantment hate. Damping Sphere, we get to kind of use both sides of it. The land tapping for more than 1 mana is really good against like Tron decks and things like that, Ugin's Labyrinth, thing, whatever. And then the other part of it, things cost 1 more for every spell that's been cast, is really good against decks like Storm. And then Licensed Hearse is effectively our graveyard hate. Now, I just got a call from the Boros Energy Company, and they're assembling an army and are going to march on the Eldrazi. That's what I call service. All right. So let's talk about some synergies that are involved with this Boros Energy deck. Now, remember Arena of Glory? Bringing back Flage is amazing. You exert Arena of Glory, pay the 2 red within Flage's cost, bring back Flage, it deals 3 damage when it enters and you gain 3 life, then you can immediately attack because it has haste from Arena of Glory, deals 3 damage and you gain 3 life, and then deals 6 combat damage. For those keeping score at home, that's a 12 damage swing and you gain 6 life, so it's an 18 damage swing, which is incredible whether they have a board or not. Remember, Unstable Amulet triggers not only on itself, but also bringing Flage back off of Ampdraptor and off of Regavan. Remember, Ampdraptor doesn't get the Cascade effect unless you're actually casting it from your hand. So if you cast it off an Unstable Amulet or another Ampdraptor or something like that, you'll only get 2 energy, you won't be able to Cascade. Remember, you can be really liberal when attacking with the cats when you have an Ajani, because if they end up blocking the cat, even if it's a profitable block, and the cat dies, then you get to flip Ajani without having to spend any resources. So Ajani is not only powerful, but also it makes combat really weird if you have Ocelot Pride and a bunch of tokens. And remember, your removal can kill your own cat to make Ajani flip. Your Lightning Bolts and Galvanic Discharges and Flages can kill a cat, flip Ajani like yourself. However, remember that they can always just like kill the Ajani in response to the trigger and you end up 2 for 1-ing yourself. So be wary of that, make sure they're tapped out or you don't think they have a removal. Oh, sounds like the fighting started. Okay, I'm heading up the stairs. I really want to check out all this fighting. But let's talk flex slots. Now, this deck really isn't figured out totally yet. In my version of the deck that you can see here, the flex slots that I'm running are the 4 Regavans, the 4th Ocelot Pride, the 4th Flage, the 3rd and 4th Static Prison, the 4 Unstable Amulet, the 4th Sacred Foundry, and the 2nd Arena of Glory. Now, any of these cards can be pretty much replaced with up to 2 Bone Crusher Giant, up to 3 Blood Moon, up to 4 Fable of the Mirror Breaker, the 4th Lightning Bolt, or as far as the lands goes, a Monumental Henge, or the 5th non-aired Mesa White Fetch, like Marsh Flats, Windswept Heath, Flooded Strand, stuff like that. Now, the flex slots I'm running in the sideboard is I'm playing 2 Sun Cleanser, 1 Celestial Purge, 1 Drannith Magistrate, and 2 Damping Sphere. You can replace any of those cards in my deck with the 3rd Blood Moon, the 2nd Celestial Purge, the 3rd Damping Sphere, the 3rd and 4th Harsh Mentor, 2 Disruptor Flute, or the 2nd and 3rd Drannith Magistrate. Let's check it out. Okay, that sounds like the fighting's over. Let's check out what happened. Okay, here we go. Oh, no hands. The Boros won. Turns out when you have enough soldiers, it doesn't matter if they're huge Eldrazi that annihilate everything in their path. It's a new day. Let's keep talking about the Boros. So let's talk about how to sideboard against each of the top 10 most popular decks in Modern with Boros, or how the Boros beat everybody. Against Bant Nado, you're bringing in the 2 Harsh Mentor to stop the combo so they can't keep equipping Shuko. Bringing in 2 Blood Moons so they can't have the fetch lands to more easily combo. And 2 Wear Tear in order to take out things like Urza Saga and their artifacts. We're bringing out 4 Ragavan because they can block it super easy. And 2 Unstable Amulet because often the games are over really early and it's really hard to get value off of Unstable Amulet. Against Jeskai control, we're bringing in a Drannith Magistrate so that they are unable to bring back Flage because very often that's how they stabilize against us. We're bringing in 2 Sun Cleanser to turn off the Galvanic Discharge and their Wrath of the Skies. We're bringing in the 2 Harsh Mentor because it's really good against the One Ring. And the 2 Blood Moon to make them fear us and to have to fetch really poorly because their cards are really color hungry. We're going to be bringing out removal because they don't have a lot to remove in 4 Galvanic Discharge and 3 Lightning Bolt. Against Boros Energy, we're bringing in Celestial Purge in order to kill the red permanents, especially Flage. Bringing in 2 Sun Cleanser to stop everything they have to do with energy. 1 Drannith Magistrate so they can't really cast things off of Ampdraptor and Flage and Unstable Amulet and Regavan. And 2 Wear Tear because it hits Static Prism and the Unstable Amulet. And Fable if they happen to be playing it. We're going to be bringing out the Unstable Amulets because the games often end very quickly, and we're bringing out 2 Ragavan because they can block it really easily. Against Mono Black Necro, we're bringing in Celestial Purge because their entire deck is black, and we're bringing out a Ragavan because Orcish Bowmasters can just kill it and get a ton of value off of it, and we don't want that to happen. Against Ruby Storm, we're bringing in Celestial Purge in order to hit Rao, because it's all about making sure they don't have their cost reducers, because if they untap with a cost reducer, we're probably dead. We're playing a Drannith Magistrate, so Pass in Flames does nothing. We're bringing in a Wear Tear to hit Ruby Medallion. Again, it's all about making sure they don't untap with the cost reducers. Bringing in Damping Sphere because it literally means they can't storm. And Unlicensed Hearse to make Pass in Flames even worse. We're bringing out 4 Flage because we have plenty of removal for Ral already for less mana, and the game's not going to go super long. And we're bringing out 4 Unstable Amulet because, again, the game's not going to go long. We're not going to get value off of Unstable Amulet. Against Tron, we're bringing in 2 Harsh Mentor because of things like the One Ring and whatnot. We're bringing in 2 Blood Moon to turn off the Tron and to turn off the Waste Mana, which is pretty good. We're bringing in 2 Wear Tear to be able to snipe things like Expedition Map and Urza Saga if they happen to still be playing that. I'm bringing in 2 Damping Sphere because, again, it turns off Tron. A little worse than Blood Moon, but still it turns off Tron. We're bringing out 3 Lightning Bolt because it really doesn't kill anything. We're bringing out 4 Unstable Amulet because the games often don't go long, even if they do their thing, it's not going to last very long, so we take out the Unstable Amulets. And we're bringing out a Flage, because while it's powerful after a big Allus Dust or something like that, on its surface, if we execute our game plan, it's not very good, so we're shaving back on Flage. Against Goro's Vengeance, we're bringing in Celestial Purge, because it takes out pretty much every creature in their deck except for Solitude. We're bringing in Blood Moon to make them fetch really poorly, because it's a really color-hungry deck. And we're bringing in 2 Unlicensed Hearse, so they can't actually execute their combo. We're bringing out 4 Unstable Amulet, because it doesn't matter whether we do our game plan or they do it, it's going to happen really quickly, and we won't have time to get value off of Unstable Amulet. And bringing out 1 Flage for the same reason as Tron. Against Living End, we're bringing in a Drannith Magistrate, because that means they can't cast Living End off the Cascade. We're bringing in 2 Blood Moon, which forces them to fetch really poorly. We're bringing in 2 Unlicensed Hearse, so we can control their graveyard, so even if they do cast a Living End, it doesn't matter. And we're bringing in 2 Damping Sphere, because we have a lot of cards in our deck that we want to take out, and Damping Sphere at least makes them Living End a turn later. We're bringing out 3 Lightning Bolt and out 4 Static Prism. I want to keep the Galvanic Discharge because a Flip to Johnny is actually really good because it doesn't die to Living End, and being able to target your own guy in order to flip a Johnny, especially in response to a Living End, is very good. Against Through the Breach, we're bringing in 2 Blood Moon to stop the mana ramp within the lands, bringing in 2 Harsh Mentor for the One Ring, and 2 Damping Sphere, again for the same reason we bring it in against Tron. We're bringing out 3 Lightning Bolt because it doesn't kill anything, and out 3 Unstable Amulet because both decks are very fast, so we won't have time. And against Mono Black Scam, so Mono Black not Necro, just focused on the Scam, we're bringing in Celestial Purge because it beats black cards, Harsh Mentor for the One Ring, Blood Moon because they're a Saga deck and Blood Moon just destroys Urza Saga. We're bringing out 4 Ragavan because of Orcish Bowmasters, and out 1 Unstable Amulet because it's probably the worst card in our deck. So crazy that the Boros beat the Eldrazi. Boros Energy has cemented itself as the premier aggro deck of Modern, with overwhelming starts, powerful energy synergies, and quite a few cards that are simply must answer. This deck checks your opponent for the appropriate removal spell over and over and over, and if they don't have it, you win. However, it has a lot of the same issues that normal aggro decks have. If the opponent survives the initial surge, it's pretty difficult for Boros Energy to recover, even though it has powerful staying power like Flage and Unstable Amulet. And if we don't have enough lands to double spell, then it's really easy for our opponent to answer that initial aggro while advancing their own game plan. However, if you're looking for an aggro deck where every single card in the deck is powerful, then Boros Energy is definitely for you. So the Boros Energy Company finally beat the Eldrazi, and the Ruby Storm is clearing up. What a beautiful day. As long as the One Ring controlling government doesn't come back to control us. Oh no, it's the Wrath of the Skies.